Each week of summer brings a new milestone for the vegetable harvest. It starts in the spring woods with ramps, aka wild leeks. Then you have asparagus, greens, radishes, broccoli and peas are coming next. Soon enough, the first tomatoes. And in the middle of all that, you have the mighty rhubarb. So prolific, huge leaves and stalks. We're nearing the end of prime rhubarb season, but I know there's still some in my fridge at home. Rhubarb pie for sure. We stop by a rhubarb roadside stand on today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day is provided by Renew Architecture and Design, designing camps, custom homes, and more throughout NCPR's listening region. Details at renewarchitecture.com.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Tuesday, June 27th. First up, all trains between Albany and Montreal have been canceled this week due to heat restrictions in Canada. The Adirondack rail line connects the two cities with stops throughout the North Country, including in Whitehall, Westport, and Plattsburgh. Amtrak announced the suspension of service last Friday, citing excessive heat restrictions along the route. Service along the Adirondack rail line between Albany and Montreal was suspended for 3 years during the pandemic and had just resumed in April. As of last month, the Amtrak website allows bookings on the Adirondack line beginning this Sunday, July 2nd. Smoke from the Canadian wildfires returned to the North Country on Sunday, creating unhealthy air conditions. It's been a massive effort to fight the hundreds of wildfires burning in Ontario and Quebec. Forest rangers from New York have been a part of that effort. Emily Russell reports.
In early June, just when the North Country was blanketed in heavy, unhealthy smoke from Canadian wildfires, a group of New York State forest rangers drove north towards those fires. Ranger Rob Projacolo, who works in the Adirondacks, said conditions up there were ripe for wildfires.
It was 90 degrees and 10 to 15 mile an hour winds every day.
Over the span of 2 weeks, the rangers worked on 4 wildfires in Quebec. They set up water pumps in lakes, dragged hoses through the forests, did what they could to dampen the blazes. Projacolo and other rangers spoke on a call with reporters on Monday. He said seeing the scale of one of the fires from a helicopter was unbelievable.
It's like flying from Lake Placid to Lake Clear, and everything in between is burned. And there's burned out camps and cottages.
Wildfires across Canada have displaced tens of thousands of people. The country has experienced extreme heat and drought conditions due to climate change. Officials say Canada is on track to have the worst wildfire season on record.
This is the most extreme fire behavior I've ever seen.
That's Ranger Anastasia Alwine, who covers the Catskills. She was one of 8 rangers working up in Canada. It was Alwine's first time fighting a wildfire outside of New York State.
And they always tell you, like, a large fire front sounds like a freight train. And just the smaller scale, the sound of it was extremely dramatic. And the speed at which it went was also dramatic.
Alwine described one of the fires as a massive wall of flames that created a huge column of smoke. Alwine said she felt called to go to Canada to help.
You know, you hear about a lot of things happening in other countries that cause concern for you, but you can't directly affect. So having the opportunity to go up and have a direct, however big or small, effect on this situation was really a privilege I couldn't pass up on.
The Rangers returned to New York last weekend. Wildfires are still raging in Canada. Rob Projacolo said there were reminders of those fires on his drive back home to the Adirondacks.
Between Ottawa and Montreal, there was still very heavy smoke. The sun was orange in the sky.
Forecasts show smoke from the Canadian wildfires will continue to plague the East Coast and Midwest all this week. Emily Russell, North Country Public Radio.
An 18-year-old from Akwesasne is likely to get the call from an NHL club in this week's draft. Kerry Terrence Jr. is a center who played more than 120 games with the Erie Otters in the Ontario Hockey League. Terrence notched 40 goals and 31 assists in 2 years. The National Hockey League Scouting Bureau rates Terrence as the number 38 prospect among North American skaters. Terrence will be in Nashville for the NHL draft, which starts tomorrow. He's unlikely to go in the first round that day, but is more likely to be chosen in the second round on Thursday. The St. Regis Mohawk tribe is holding a draft watch party for Terrence Thursday, starting at 10 in the morning at Generations Park in Akwesasne. June means the season's first strawberries and the opening of lots of side-of-the-road summer food stands. They're all over the North Country, and you've probably got a few in your neighborhood selling seasonal produce, eggs, and honey. Amy Feiereisel stopped by the stand at J&W Orchard in Norfolk, where one of the owners was picking fresh rhubarb for sauces and pies. Here's her audio postcard.
It's one of those beautiful, clear, and slightly windy days when I pull off the side of Route 38. I stopped because of a big, hand-painted sign promising rhubarb. In front of me is a house and acres of immaculate gardens and fruit trees.
We got 33 varieties of apples, 3 different variety of pears, 4 different variety of plums.
That's the woman behind it all. She grew up on this land.
I'm Angie Conger. My father used to own this and I took over. He passed away in 2015. So I'm trying to keep the tradition.
J&W stands for Jean and Walt, Conger's parents. Jean still lives here. Conger cares for her and the farm.
I'm the only kid out of 6 kids that's around this area, so I got the job.
This early in the season, there's really one crop in the garage-turned-farm stand. Big, freshly cut bags of rhubarb.
I have people coming all the time from all over. I had one person come from Russell and bought four bags of them, and each bag has 2 pounds in it.
We're in the rhubarb patch, a meticulously tidy raised bed, bursting with rhubarb stalks and leaves.
Some of them have to be picked. In the beginning of the spring, they're so big.
Conger is filling a wicker basket with rhubarb stalks that have leaves the size of toddlers. But these, she says, aren't big.
And then because I have so many people coming, they don't have time to get big. Big. They're still big, and some people say they like them better small because they're more tender.
Conger's favorite way to cook rhubarb is in a pie with strawberries. She says her father's rhubarb patch was much smaller than this one. She's been growing it the last few years.
Started with maybe a 6 foot, and then we divided them up and spread it out. Well, we actually went this way, and then that way, and then last year we did that one.
Now it's about 100 feet of rhubarb plants, surrounded by clean straw. Conger says she gets her compulsive neat streak from her dad.
It's like my father was that way. Well, you got to get it right the first time or you got redo.
When I leave Conger, she's sitting in the grass in a pool of sunlight.
I am cutting the ends off, and then I'll be going in and bagging it up.
When that sells out in a few hours, she'll be back out here, harvesting more. In Norfolk at J&W Orchard, I'm Amy Feiereisel for North Country Public Radio.
Check out the pictures of Angie Conger and her rhubarb patch in the online story at ncpr.org. We have more news there all the time, of course, ncpr.org. And remember that Story of the Day is available as a podcast. That means you can subscribe for free and get it downloaded automatically to your device of choice, so it's ready for you to listen when you want. If mornings are better for you, it's a great time to catch up on regional news with the Story of the Day podcast. Subscribe in your podcast app of choice or go to ncpr.org/podcasts. And my offer stands. I'll personally help anyone set this up. Just email me, david@ncpr.org. Music today by Caitlin Scholl of Lake Placid and Oscar Sarmiento of Potsdam. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.